A man was found naked inside the state capitol and then found trespassing again two more times within 24 hours. The Minnesota State Patrol is now seeking answers about the safety and security of state lawmakers, but one former Capitol security officer has been raising questions for years. Next. My guest today wanted to speak anonymously about his experiences as a security officer at the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul. Unfortunately, there is a lot to discuss, but first off, last Friday, a man was found naked inside the Senate chamber. The man, who authorities have identified as Dominic Peace, was then taken to Regents Hospital for a mental health evaluation, but he then returned to the Capitol grounds two more times within 24 hours before he was finally arrested. It was only after the third time that his long history of arrests in Minnesota and an active warrant for his arrest out of Wisconsin became known. So a lot of people are wondering now, how could anyone get inside the Capitol on a Friday night after hours and then trespass again two more times? So as someone who knows the Capitol inside and out, how does this even happen?
I could point to physical security, such as the 16 doors and another set of handicap doors. But the main problem is they don't want to arrest people, mostly because it generates a log at the jail. The log is public info. That creates a paper trail showing crime at the Capitol. This is the main security problem. Also, Governor Walz told the Star Tribune, and here I took some notes on this. He said something like, the door the man walked through did not set off an alarm because of the open access policy. But every door in the Capitol has a sensor on it. And this triggers an alarm in the security system. The alarms are monitored at the Capitol security workstations. And on the screen, it shows multiple alarms. They appear constantly. Even an officer on patrol can trigger multiple alarms when going through the buildings. And the list of alarms builds until a dispatcher goes in and clears them out. But what doesn't clear are alarms like door did not close. Those alarms would stay until an officer checks the door. And if a door is opened after hours, it would trigger an alarm. But the door is closed. When the door is closed, it goes back to its normal state of security. And here's the thing, 80% of the time, there's only one dispatcher on a shift who has to monitor everything. So that's another real problem that they have with security.
Also this month, we reported about a Capitol security officer who was arrested for impersonating an undercover police officer. He was drunk at a bar in Minneapolis, threatening customers, and then driving off drunk with a loaded firearm. So obviously this raises some questions about hiring standards. Can you give some insight here? Have hiring standards changed over the years?
Hiring standards have been lowered. I mean, if you look back to job postings, just a few years ago, you needed a minimum of 2 years security experience to get hired. And you had to pass a background check. Now, it's just 6 months. And in the current job listings, they don't mention passing a background check. So they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel in hiring staff and even supervisors from outside. And then there's training. Once they're hired, then they're trained. So for decades, everyone had 40 hours of classroom training, including CPR, defensive tactics, and now it's about 8 hours, and then they're sent out. And I learned about this when I was hired. The patrol uses Capitol Security to recruit their DEI hires, so to make their DEI numbers. And they've been doing this for years.
That brings up some of the confusion between the Minnesota State Patrol and the officers at the Capitol. Capitol security officers are not licensed police officers per se. They can't carry firearms, but even batons, handcuffs, and tasers are all off limits. Is that true?
Earlier this year, they stripped the supervisors of their tasers. And, they offered a dozen explanations for doing that. And just before the assassination that happened in June, or the assassinations, they took away handcuffs and batons. And those were the only real means of self-defense. And the person who manages CALIA certification for the patrol division told officers that by law, they cannot arrest anyone. They can't arrest anyone. The captain said they couldn't make arrests because of liability. So to get around this, they're reorganizing the agency to fit into a very narrow set of guidelines. And once again, they're trying to avoid a paper trail. And since the Unicorn Riot people, they requested a ton of stuff after the Philando Castile protests, including texts and emails and video footage. When that happened, all the posted orders at the stations were taken down. And a captain told us that from that point on, all orders will be verbal. This way, if something happened, if something went wrong, there's no printed order for anyone to follow or to follow up on. And, it falls into this sort of he said, she said situation, and there's nothing written down. And if something goes wrong, it's the officer who will be in trouble.
Alpha News has reported on all kinds of security concerns at the state capitol. About 10 years ago, an angry protester showing up at a committee meeting, which happened again this past session.
You need to knock it off.
Get away from my personal space
I
and
am
stop
away from
yelling
your
in my
personal
face.
space. I'm standing right here.
I am giving you
A
lawful request to
no,
respect my personal space.
You can have someone
You're
drag me out,
defying
and then
that
it's gonna
just
be
as
on
you have
you
defied
in the
multiple.
If it were up to you, what changes would you make to improve safety and security at the Capitol?
So I know that Alpha News reported on a lot of the events at the Capitol over the years, including the Trump riots in 2017. And, it's when Antifa was there. They were coming in with huge backpacks full of gear. But there was no bag screening at the Capitol. There's no bag screening to stop anyone from bringing in basically whatever they want. But screening would make a huge difference. Absolutely. The real thing is patrol has to look good at the Capitol. They're funded by both parties, both sides. So they have to be nice to everyone, basically. And there's been several times when officers were sent to deal with people, smoking fentanyl. They would just send a trooper in an unmarked squad, but they wouldn't even get out of the car. They would just sit behind these people because they didn't want to be seen. They didn't want people in the state building to see them pushing people around. And, they would just be sitting there doing what they're doing, and the trooper would just be sitting behind them. wouldn't even get out of the car. And they did the same exact thing with all of the homeless trouble that we were having with the homeless encampments. And over the years, I've tried to reach out. I've tried to make some changes. I'm just not complaining. It's just, and reached out to politicians on both sides. I sent plenty of emails, but I've heard nothing back. Well, except for one who did reply to my emails, but here we are.
I know you wanted to remain anonymous, but thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Alpha News.
That will do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We'll see you next time.